Hello everyone, thank you for joining me here today. I appreciate it's the last session of the day, so I won't keep you too long because I know there's pubs just outside. So my name is Josh, I'm from a company called Shooting Partners, and I'm going to talk to you about, just a very light overview on different types of cameras and just some, tips and bits of advice that I wish I'd known getting into the industry from university to where I am now. So Shooting Partners, who are they? So we are a camera hire company. We've been going, well, next year, I believe it'll be 30 years that we've been around. So if, for want of a better word, we could almost call ourselves more of a technology company than an actual camera hire company. Because cameras now are, they've come on so much leaps and bounds of what actually they used to be. Some cameras are pretty much just a computer, which you put a lens onto the front now. But at Shooting Partners, we've we've got years of experience, and what we do with a lot of our clients is actually we help advise them on the latest cameras, different technologies to help them achieve their shoots and get the shots that they want. So just some of the productions that we've been involved with. Hands up who's not watched Gogglebox? Absolutely. So only one or two. So everyone knows and loves Gogglebox. So I think they're coming up to about their 8th series now, and we've been involved with them since day one. So what happened with Gogglebox is Studio Lambert, who's a production company, they came up to said, this is what we want to achieve. Show us what cameras you have available to us to make us film that. So we went to them, we did, had production meetings, we gave them options, and we helped them refine what types of cameras to use. So they actually used robotic cameras, which sit in the sort of the living rooms of the contributors, and that's how they film it. Up here, Mutiny, I don't know if anyone saw that last year. That was for Windfall Media, really ambitious project. There's the famous story of the Mutiny of the Bounty, not the chocolate bar, but the actual ship itself. And basically, the captain and some of his senior crew got sent, the crew mutinied against them, put them in a rowing boat, and they spent about 8 weeks in the South Pacific trying to get to a safe point. So Windfall tried to recreate that with the crew. Once again, very technical, because you've got a lot of about 9 guys in a boat, for weeks on end, and they had to be covered with cameras and audio. So we helped Windfall just find suitable rugged cameras that could be filming that. We've done the past 3 series of Hunted for Shine. So once again, with that, I don't know if anyone has seen Hunted, but it's got your 2 teams. You've got your hunters and your fugitives. So the fugitives basically are people who are on the run in the country for a month, and they have to avoid capture. So with that sort of thing, they want small, kind of inconspicuous cameras, because the members of the public can sort of ship them in to the production if they need to, because there's cash prizes. So we can do lots of new cameras. We try and advise and help people get what they want. Most recently, we started moving into 360 video. VR has been around for the past couple of years, and it's very much kind of a hot topic at the moment. So this down here is the Nokia Ozone, which we have. Within the Shooting Partners group, we've also got Anna Valley, who are our sister company, and they are involved in LED displays and projectors. Just a few of the programs that we're involved in, so Britain's Got Talent, X Factor, so all the sets, so all the sort of moving images, that stuff that we're involved with. Bottom right, you've got the James Bond Spectre premiere. So this back here, obviously a bit small, so I'm not sure if you can see it too well, but that's a big LED wall that we built outside for that premiere. Series 5, Game of Thrones premiere, they did it at the Tower of London. So we projection map, so that dragon would fly around the Tower of London and breathe fire, and then it would reveal the logo. And most recently, we started getting into studio installs and installations. So this uses a lot of the same technology that we use for Anna Valley, so displays and screens, but also it uses cameras as well. So I suppose the question is, why am I sort of talking about these other companies? What we're finding is within the industry, the boundaries are getting blurred. It's useful to have an overview of cameras, screens, and everything. So, not that you have to specialize in all those, but it's nice to know about them because, as I said, it is getting more and more blurred. So why should you listen to me? So that young, handsome chap was me about 10 years ago. So I started university, did a media degree course, loved it, had a great time. But what I found is actually my course was very theoretical. So for what little camera work I had done at the course, I knew that I wanted to do camera work. So out of uni, I was like, yay, let's do it. I'm going to become a camera operator. How? How do I get to be in that? So I joined a production company and I became a runner. And it was great, really great people, really interesting productions. But after about 6 months, the best thing I was really good at doing was making teas and coffees. It wasn't until I was on a shoot that had a camera assistant on it. And I said, how do I be you? And his best advice to me was to join a camera hire company, a facilities company. So I was like, great, let's do it. Obviously, at that point, none were hiring. So, I carried on doing what I was doing, just keeping an eye on what was going on in the world. The job, with that, shooting partners, they had a position available. I applied. I obviously showed enough aptitude and willing and passion for it that they hired me on the spot. Well, not on the spot, but they hired me. From that on, I spent about 4 years in the kit room shooting partners. So I started off doing delivery drives, not glamorous, but it's actually got its merits because when you're doing deliveries from shooting partners anyway, you're going to production companies. So you're already starting that networking and, in the industry, it's still quite a big part of it is actually networking and sort of making contacts and who you know. I mean, friends of friends are great reference points, for getting sort of into places. So after doing that drives, I'd also be checking kits in and out every day. So I had a really good technical knowledge of the various cameras that we stocked. And then after about a year or so, once again, showing the willing and just the passion to do it, I started going out on shoots as a camera assistant, and then did that for a while, and then actually went onto shoots for shooting partners as a camera operator. From that, I decided it was time to go freelance. For me personally, I really wanted to get into sports and live OB filming, so outside broadcast. So with that, once again, I'd made a few connections. I knew some camera operators who specifically focused on sports. So I basically got them to make the introduction for me into that world. So for a few years, I sort of did sports, but I also did camera assisting. I didn't solely focus on one thing. Some people are very lucky and they can go into the world and they hit the ground running. Some people you just need to build up to it, but you should be willing to try everything. Then I had a family, which was amazing. I love my kids to death, but I wanted something a bit more secure for me personally. So I actually got a job as an in-house camera operator for a production company. With that, did lots of shooting, lots of responsibility, but because it was a small production company, I found that I was doing a lot of project management and client liaison as well. So where that leads me up to now is I'm now an account manager at Shooting Partners because I like to be sociable with people, but I still have the technical knowledge of the cameras and stuff. So firstly, what is a camera operator? Anyone in the room? Camera operator? Yes. What do you think a camera operator is?
Guy that controls the camera.
Cool. Anyone else? So, kind of a dictionary definition is a camera operator is the person who's responsible for operating the camera and maintaining composition and camera angles throughout the given shoot or scene. But in all fairness, a camera operator is so much more. It's not just that. You have to be creative. If you're, depending on what type of camera operating you're doing, if you're doing interviews, you have to do the lighting for that. You have to have the look of the shot that you're trying to achieve. You also have to be a team member. When you're on a shoot or operating, very rarely is it just you who is operating the camera. Sometimes there's a sound op, there's normally a director or some production person with you. You're all part of a team working to that one goal to get that shot and get that either onto TV if it's broadcast or to the client if it's a corporate type of thing. So you all have to muck in, obviously make sure you get your stuff right as well, but lend a hand. You also have to be a good communicator, because with that, you'll be working with people who've never been filmed before, so they'll be nervous about it. You might be working with, talent who actually knows what they're doing, but you might just give them nudges of where you want them to go. Just help them out. And you also have to be diplomatic. You might come to some sort of scenes or locations where what they want you to achieve is really can't be shot well. I mean, a case in point is years ago, I was doing a filming for a bank, a corporate thing. I was interviewing like the CEO. Their big thing, or his big thing, was that they've got the best offices in the world, the best view. The problem was, the room that they'd chosen for the interview was south-facing. It was winter, so there was a really low sun. And so for the actual shot, the sun was coming right through the window, down the barrel of the lens. So it was making it really difficult to get a nice, clean shot. So I closed the blinds as much as I could, still got the some of the view of the outside, but it wasn't the full open windows. And the CEO comes in and goes, "Why the curtain, the blinds down? We've got this amazing view. This isn't what I wanted." And I was like, okay. I explained the situation. I told him about the light coming in, that it made it really tricky for the shot. But I said, maybe we could try something else. I also showed him what it looks like on a monitor, so he knew what I was talking about. So with that, we actually went outside and shot on the balcony. And personally, I think it was a much better shot. And of course, I would say that because I was the one who suggested it. But you do have to be diplomatic because the people you're dealing with, as I said, they can either be nervous or people have a vision of what they're expecting. So it's kind of saying no without saying no, if you know what I mean. So maybe what you do is you go, okay, let's do that shot, but could we also try it this way? It just gives you options. So different types of cameras. So who knows what a systems camera is? Anyone? Yeah?
Yes, I'm doing a system camera.
Okay. No, it's fine. Does anyone know what E&G stands for in E&G cameras? So that's electronic news gathering. So with systems cameras, they tend to be the type of cameras that you would get on a multi-camera live event. So generally with that is you have the camera body, but there'll normally be a single cable coming out of that. So that could either be a fiber or a triax cable. There'll be tests after, so you have to remember that. And with that, all the camera operator is focusing on is actually shot composition and being in the right place at the right time. All the sort of other functions, so like the white balance, the iris and stuff like that, will generally be controlled back in an OB truck or in a gallery by some RACS engineers. On the right here, we've got a E&G camera. So this is more, if you've seen those shots from BBC outside Parliament when there's the presenter talking and there's, House of Parliament behind them. These are the type of cameras that's filmed on. So where these cameras sort of really lend themselves is ergonomically, they're really comfortable. So I've got this one over here. So the traditional kind of positioning is on your shoulder like so. So that is really comfortable to hold on your shoulder for, lots, sort of minutes, even hours if you really need to on end. Not that you should be doing that, definitely use a tripod if you can. But everything is really sort of thought out for how you do it. So it's nicely weighted, it sits comfortably, your eyepiece is there, so you're not even trying to struggle with that. And actually with the lenses you use, they're just really practical. So you've got your focus, your zoom, and your iris all within the use of one hand. So there's just, if you're running up and down a touch line, it's just a lot more practical and comfortable. You can even sort of throw it under your arm like that. And so it just, it gives you lots of options. And with the lens, because it's a zoom lens, it gives you a lot of range. So just a couple of examples. So these are some shoots I have been on in the past. So in the top left, this is a friend of mine called Steve Rouse, who's a highly experienced OB camera operator. And if you've ever watched rugby, you've probably seen him on the touchline running down. He wears bandana, normally has coloured socks on, quite bright. But this is actually the World Series of Poker tour that he's filming. So in this shot, all he's focusing on is making sure he gets the right shots for the director. And I don't know if it's too clear, but he's actually got a mouthpiece or, a little microphone there. So he's actually constantly tuned into what the director was telling him he wants as a shot. Down here, keeping the rugby theme going, 'cause, Six Nations this week. So this was from a few years back. It was the Six Nations sort of opening launch at the Hurlingham Club in London. So this is using one of these cameras. So similar, very similar sort of design and shape as a sort of systems type camera, but it's kind of independent. The camera operator is doing all the settings himself. It's recording internally, not going back to a truck or a gallery. And actually all these bits off the back, that's actually the sound man's, audio cables. And now I'm just going to show you some footage of the type of footage that you can achieve with these types of cameras. So this is from once again, keeping the rugby going. This is a sevens tournament. So as you can see, it's all pretty much in focus, because with sports and live events, although it's nice to get shallow depths of field, it's not vital, because you want to take in all the action that's happening, and you can keep with the action by zooming in nice and steadily. It just, everything is geared up for this type of filming. This now leads us on to Super 35mm sensor cameras. So here you've got a Sony FS7. This is a really new camera, and it came out sort of the back end of last year. So this is the Panasonic EVIL 1. Has anyone filmed with any sort of Super 35mm sensor cameras? Okay. And actually, in the back of the room, we've got Alex, who's filming this, who is filming on a Canon C300 Mark II. Once again, big sensor. So the question is, why would you go for these types of cameras over E&G type or systems cameras? Firstly, you get the shallow depth of field, or the glossy look, as people like to call it. So for those who don't know what it is, shallow depth of field is basically when you're doing, the classic is if you're doing an interview, you've got the person's face pin sharp, but everything in front and behind is out of focus. So that is depth of field. You can have deeper depth of field, so there's more in focus, and that's where it lends itself to sports, because you want to be seeing as much going on as possible. Also, with sort of these cameras, they're very modular, so all these items on the actual camera can be taken off. So with that, it means that you can put them on jibs, on sliders, on sort of glide cams, anything like that. So it makes them very versatile and actually helps give you a high production value. One thing to note with these cameras is generally they use different lenses, but like at the moment the kind of preferred lenses are Canon EF lenses, but these are stills lenses. They give you a lovely image, but they're not necessarily the most practical for using if you're doing lots of like fast action, because you've got zoom and focus on a lot of them, but the iris is actually controlled by the camera. So there's lots of compromises that needs to be made with this type of filming, and which cameras you use as well. Also, has anyone heard of the term log? So log is generally a term that enables you to get high dynamic range. So high dynamic range, and I'm just going to I could go all day about this sort of stuff, so I'm just going to kind of keep it light. High dynamic range means that you're getting the right exposure at the highest bright points and the lowest dark points within a certain stop range. So on the iris, which is how bright or dark an image is generally, you can go between the different iris. And so traditionally what you do with cameras is they weren't that smart. You'd have to tell them what's important. So if you're filming outside and it's the person you're interviewing, their face is in shade, obviously you want to be able to see the face clearly. So you have to tell the camera that's what's important. But with high dynamic range, it gives you the ability to have a lot more stuff correctly exposed. So this is just some footage from Sony, and this is basically the test footage they released when they launched the Sony FS7 a few years back. So down here you've just got some information about which lenses they're using, what log they were using. So Sony, it's S-log, with Canon it's C-log. Essentially it means the same thing, but it's each sort of manufacturer's different type. So what I'm referencing with the depth of field, so as you can see, her face is lovely in focus, but the actual background is soft. It's more of your like dramatic and film look that you're trying to achieve with this. But One thing to note with all these shots is you're actually having to change your lenses quite a lot because the range of zooms or how wide you can go varies. So with lots of, there is no hard and fast rule about which lenses you should use with these cameras. But traditionally we'd send them out with 3 different types of lenses. So a wide, kind of a mid-length one, and a zoom lens. Going on to the whole high dynamic range thing, you can see outside very clearly, it's nice, you can see the detail, but also in the sort of the corner where the shade is, you can see the detail in that very clearly. Essentially, it's making the camera a lot more like your eyes. You can be in a dark room and looking outside and everything is still, you can see everything clearly. Whereas before with cameras, as I was saying, you'd have to make the choice about what you want to focus or what's important for the camera. So with these, it's just enabling you to get like quite a high-end filmic look with sort of cameras that you can pick up sort of for a very decent price. So that's Super 35mm sensors. The one before was a systems camera, an ENG camera, but quite often those will use 2 1/3" chips. So basically, it's got 3 2 1/3" size chips inside it. Leads us on to fixed lens cameras. So cameras like this. So this is a Canon XF305, very good camera, and they've been, kind of a workhorse for Canon for quite a few years now. Really good. Here we've got a JVC camera. There's Sony do variations of it. So why would you necessarily go for these cameras over that one and the Super 35mm sensor camera? Once again, it comes down to what you're filming and what you actually want to achieve. So with these cameras, generally, so they're smaller than sort of your systems camera, so a lot more portable. They're actually quite rugged just because it's all in one. Speed of use, you've got it all here for you. You don't have to change lenses as much. I mean, sometimes you need to put a wide angle adapter, but it's kind of all there for you. It's just, it works very well for, fast moving, when you go to environments which, you haven't got time to, you don't want to expose the sort of sensors to the elements. So this is some footage which another DOP that I know called Mark Marive has kindly allowed me to borrow for this talk. So this is a showreel that he shot purely using an XF305. So one thing which I think is interesting is because it's got the fixed lens and it's basically with these cameras, they tend to be either like a 1/2" or a 1/3" chip. You don't get the shallow depth of field as you would get with a Super 35mm sensor. But what you can do is there are things you can do, sort of techniques that you can use to achieve a shallow depth of field with these cameras. So one of them is actually opening up the iris. So the more light you can get onto a camera sensor, the shallower the depth of field. So the more out of focus things get. Another way to do it is actually zooming in on a subject. So the further you are zoomed in on a lens, once again, that helps with depth of field. So with this, he'd have been zoomed in on that sort of stuff. But as you can tell, the locations he's filming, they're quite, some of them could be classed as extreme. Deserty area, there'll be a snow scene in a second. It's the sort of thing that you might want to just be able to quickly get the camera out and start filming. But also you've got, your more traditional stuff. So, you're doing your interview type filming and maybe even corporate. So, there's lots of options. So you won't necessarily be limited by the technology that you're using. You just, as with all things, if you know what you're doing, it really helps. So just a few camera takeaways. So just, useful stuff to know. The bigger the sensor of a camera, the shallower the depth of field. So Super 35mm sensors, shallow depth of field, sort of 2 1/3" chip, 1/2" chip cameras, big depth of field, so there's more in focus. One thing that is, really useful to know is find power as soon as you get to location. You don't want your batteries running out. And even if you're doing lighting as well, that's really important. So, just little tips like that. If you're camera assisting, you let your camera operator get in the house and start looking at what shot they want. you get your batteries on charge first. As I said earlier, have the right tool for the right job. There's no point in taking, well, there is a point, but make sure that the camera you're using is suitable for what you want to achieve. Know what you're using. If you've never used a camera and you've been asked to film with it, or even if you want to film with, don't wait to be told to use it. There's, facilities companies like ourselves, camera manufacturers, camera suppliers, so like Canon, CVP, ProAV, Sony, they've got their own sort of experience centers where you can actually come and play with the cameras quite often. Ask questions, get your hands on it. There's nothing worse than getting on set and you want to achieve something and you don't know the toolkit you're using. Know what you're filming. Keeping on the sport theme, if you've never watched a rugby match or know what rugby's about, how can you be expected to film that? You need to be able to know what's going to happen in the right place. Same thing with doing interviews. If you are filming the CEO of a bank, you kind of want to be making sure that you've got quite a traditional sort of setup because it's a bank, they tend to be fairly serious. So yeah, know what you're filming. That's also the important thing. So here's just some tips, from that I've picked up over the years. What sets you apart? As with all business, lots of people want to do the job. So why should someone pick you over another camera operator, another self-shooter? There's things you can do to, be proactive, know the company that you're going to be working for or the camera operator. For example, filming in here today, if you happen to be living in London at the time, or if you're near the location, maybe if you've got time, you go there a few days before. You speak to security, find out how you get into the building. So when actually the morning of the actual shoot comes, and if you meet up production, it just shows that little bit more of impetus. You've actually gone that extra mile to find out. Maybe you've chatted to the security guard, and you become really friendly. Well, as friendly as you can get within a quick conversation, but you go, oh, hi, Bob, me from, Shooting Partners, doing the film, is it okay if we go to that car parking spot? That sort of thing, it makes it easier for production. It's that sort of thing that will, make you stand out. What sets you apart from the other person? Stuff like that. So, fault finding, which is another really useful thing to know. Cameras, they're mechanical. They occasionally go wrong. Same with audio, same with anything really. Your car goes wrong. But there are some things you can do to try and, as I said, fault find. We've had it before with people calling up and saying, oh, this radio mic's not working. We need a new kit. And it's like, okay, you might have a valid point there, but, what have you done to make sure that that is actually what, has it completely died or what's going on? So, you start going through the phone, what have you done? So have you got the transmitter and receiver? Okay, great, you've got those. Are they turned on? Yes. Have you got the right end? So is the transmitter with the person talking? Is the receiver with the camera? Yes, okay, great. Is it plugged in? It sounds like simple, but it does happen. So, work through the process, which once again, this kind of ties in with the know the kit that you're using. Because if you do, it makes it easier for you to try and find out if something has gone wrong, what's caused it. Another sort of obvious one is listen to your elders. There are people in this industry who've been doing it for many, many years, have so much experience, and generally they're always more than willing to help you out if you just got a sensible question. I mean, I remember a few years back, when I just got into it at the industry, I was filming a two-person interview. So I was shooting one person, the other camera operator was shooting the other, and the other camera operator was a very experienced cameraman. He was just looking at the viewfinder, just kind of, he didn't have his eye up to it, he was just like looking over. So he was kind of doing that sort of thing. Me, being young and trying to look cool and impress him, I was doing the same thing. I got absolutely chewed out by the director. He's like, what are you doing? I was like, just, getting the shot. He goes, why isn't your eye on the eyepiece? I was like, I can still see it. He goes, no, you should have your eye on the eyepiece. It's, you know, this is designed this way so that you can block out any light that could be causing glare on the screen. So he's like, you know, what if, you know, one of the lights was reflecting on the screen and you missed, you know, a pot plant growing out of the contributor's head, that sort of thing. You know, it hadn't occurred to me, but, you know, he was right. He had a valid point with that. So listen to your elders. There's a wealth of information out there. I suppose the question is, how do you become a camera operator or a self-shooter? So there's no hard and fast rules, but there's, you know, there's some different avenues you can take. So first one is you could attach yourself to a camera operator. You become their assistant, you follow them, you learn from them, and you go out on shoots, and eventually you move on and you go freelance. It's very doable, but it's quite tricky because there's only a handful of camera operators and lots of people want to be their assistants. And actually there's still a lot of shoots nowadays that actually don't need camera assistants. So, you know, that is a route, but, you know, it's not always the most easy. Join a facility company like us. You know, that's how I got into the industry. That's how Alex at the back. Alex came to us 5 years ago for some work experience. Did that, went back to university. When he came out of university, it just happened timing quite right. And he got he applied for a job, and because we'd met him and knew him, you know, he pretty much walked into the role because, you know, a week's work experience is so much better than just a single day's like half-hour interview because you get to know much more about the person. So he went through the same process as myself, started in the kit room, but he's now our senior in-house camera operator and films all the Gogglebox for us for Studio Lambert. So, you know, that is a good route. If you want to get more into a sporty live multi-camera thing, there are sort of OB companies, so companies called Telegenic, CTV, Arena. They solely focus on doing like big multi-camera shoots. So maybe you want to try and join them as kind of like as an assistant, and that's one route into it. If you want to get more into a drama sort of role, if you want to do drama filming or films, there are companies that sort of tend to cater more to that sort of world. So, you know, be smart about who you pick and who you kind of want to get in bed with, for want of a better word. Because different companies have different sort of strengths and sort of clientele who they work with. Another option is you could just go it alone. You know, lots of university courses have amazing cameras. I mean, I've been to, you know, like Ravensbourne, like the cameras they have are, you know, as good as any hire company that you go to. And you don't have to pay if you're there as well. Unless I'm wrong and it's changed and you have to charge to hire a kit out. But, excuse me. Yeah, start filming your own stuff, you know, promote yourself. You know, you are your own brand from the get-go. I mean, I spoke to a friend of mine who's a series editor now for Shine. And when I first met him, he was a shooting director. And I was like, all right, you know, I've known you for a while. How did you actually get into your role? How did you get your start? And for him, he actually started on EastEnders in production. He was an AD. And he's saying he did that for about 5 years. And he decided after those 5 years that, you know, what, I really like camera work. I want to, you know, get into do more camera and filming. So what he did is he borrowed a couple of cameras every now and then and started shooting his own stuff. You know, built up a bit of a showreel. And then he actually, I mean, he was in a position that he obviously knew some production people, so he was able to get his footage in front of the right people. But he showed it, someone took a punt on him. He got onto ITV2 production as a sort of a shooting director. And in his words, the rest is history. You know, he did a good enough job that, you know, he got another job after that, and it just kind of snowballed and snowballed. And that's how he got into doing the self-shooting gig. On that word, you know, as I said, promote yourself. You are your brand. There's YouTube, there's Vimeo. They're free to sign up to. And if you can get access to the cameras and the editing kit, just do it, create your own stuff. If you particularly want to go for a certain type of filming, so if you want to be a documentary director or film like a camera operator, or if you want to do sports, or, you know, if you want to do dramas, watch dramas, watch sports, watch documentaries, and try and recreate what you've just watched. You know, have a go at yourself. You learn, you make mistakes, absolutely, but that's the best way to learn. If you know what you've done wrong, you can do it. You know, you can try it again And if you know, especially if it's a kit that you just borrowed from university, or you know, from a friend, or even just you know, if you're speaking to like a camera hire company, say, look, you know, I was going to do some test film and that sort of thing. That all just puts you in really good stead, because then you can start sending that to the right people. You know, different production companies specialize in different types of filming. Some are more like entertainment camera companies, some are more documentary. So if you know, you tailor what you want to send to them to what they like to film or what they like to produce, you know, it's just going to help you out, because you know, you're sort of singing from the same sort of sheet. Be dogmatic with it. You know, it is a tough business to get into, but you know, so is any business, do you say? You know, I'm sure, I never tried it, but I'm sure banking's hard to get into, you know, but it's all about you. If you're passionate about it, don't lie. You know, we've had it in the past where someone's come in for an interview and they say, oh, so classics, why do you want to work for us? Oh, I love cameras, I'm really passionate about it. Okay, great, what's your favorite camera? Sony? You know, they don't, well, not they haven't lied, but you know, it's easy to get caught out that way, and honesty is the best policy. If you're truthful about it, because I mean, hey, when I started, I found that actually I didn't actually know as much as I thought I did about cameras, but the passion was there, and you know, the enthusiasm, and I learnt on the job. So yeah, be passionate, be dogmatic, and I guess most importantly, that sort of thing is enjoy what you do. You know, don't get into camera work because you think being a camera operator is cool. Yes, you will probably get to go to cool locations and do cool shoots, but that shouldn't be your primary goal. You should be doing it because you're passionate about it and you really want to do it and you love it. But yeah, just enjoy it. And basically, I guess finally is, yes, it's tough to get into this industry, but it's tough to get into any industry. As long as you know, you stick at it, you try hard, you do everything you can to promote it, there is absolutely no reason why you can't be a camera operator yourself or a self-shooter or get into this industry. And that's me. Thank you everyone for your time. I can now take questions if needed. Make it kind.
Hi.
Hi there.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about mirrorless cameras, so like Fujifilm X-T2, Sony A7S.
What would you like to know about them?
Essentially the same thing that you did with like the benefits, what they might not be so great at. I'm currently using the X-T2 for a documentary at the moment, and I think I might have picked the wrong camera.
Well, I think it's one of those. So we've got quite a few Sony A7Ss. They're very good cameras, give you a lovely look. With that, I mean, for that particular camera, because it's a Sony camera, and with the lens, which lenses have you been using?
Well, I'm not using the A7S. I'm using
I know, sorry, but so
Oh, you mean what lens?
types of lenses, yeah.
I've got a 50 prime or a 55, and then 18 to either 50 or 55 zoom.
So I mean, those types of mirrorless cameras, they've got similar sort of pros and cons to more of your super 35mm cameras. So one thing is obviously they're small, they're lightweight, they lend themselves really well to being put on jibs and tracks and stuff like that. So you can get some really nice movements out of it. But being a still, sort of being a stills type camera, you haven't got necessarily the same zoom range on the lens. So you're having to do lots of lens changes to get different shots. What we find with the A7Ss that we have out is they tend to be used as a lot of sort of B camera. But when you're doing multiple, filming with multiple cameras, syncing them together is normally quite an issue for the edit. So with these cameras, they've actually got a B and C time code in and out. So you have more than one camera, you plug one into the other one and it reads the time code, so those cameras are in sync. With sort of stills type and sort of mirrorless cameras, you don't necessarily have those connectors just because of the size of them. So with that, you know, there's ways around it. You can do clapping, like a clap sync, and that's a way to achieve it. But it just adds a bit of complication. So yeah, basically, the sort of, as I say, those sort of cameras, they're great. They give some lovely looks, but it's the whole thing, the actual ergonomics of it as well. You know, that camera in the end, amazing for running around all day shooting. Same with that. The actual shape of it's not the most comfortable, so quite often you have to have like a shoulder rig on those to, you know, if you want to do it on that. But the same with, you know, sort of smaller cameras and even the Super 35mm sensors. You normally have to build them onto a rig depending on what type of shooting you want to film. Is that okay? Yeah. Anyone else? I mean, if you don't want to, I mean, I'm around afterwards, so you can always come up to me and ask anything. But thank you for your time. Cheers.